Mom, I have a special surprise for you tonight, Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady, but his fingers tightened around his phone as if the words carried more weight than he expected. And on the other end of the line, Carol went quiet in that thoughtful way she had whenever life shifted even a little. A surprise? She asked after a second, gentle but alert, the way mothers always are, and Ethan forced a light laugh, staring out the cafe window at people rushing past with shopping bags and winter coats. A good one, I promise. Just be home by 7, okay? And maybe wear that blue sweater you like. Carol smiled even though he couldn't see it, leaning against her kitchen counter with the late afternoon sun warming the room. You're being mysterious, Ethan Parker. Last time you sounded like this you were 16 and trying to plan a prom proposal that almost set off the fire alarm. He groaned softly. I told you we don't talk about that anymore, she chuckled. And the sound eased something in his chest. All right, I'll be home, sweetheart, she said, softer now, the way she always spoke when she sensed something important hiding behind his casual tone. And when the call ended, Ethan lowered the phone slowly, letting out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding, then looked across the small round cafe table at Lily, who sat with both hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long gone cold, her eyes searching his face for answers he hadn't spoken yet. She'll be home, he said. And Lily nodded, but the nervous smile on her lips trembled at the edges. And she doesn't know about me, she asked, even though she already knew the answer. Ethan shook his head. Not yet. I wanted tonight to be special, not just a by the way, Mom, I'm in love kind of phone call. Lily gave a soft breath that might have been a laugh if it wasn't tangled with nerves. 2 years is a long time to keep a secret, she said, and Ethan reached across the table, sliding his hand over hers. Warm and steady. It wasn't about hiding you, it was about timing. After Dad passed it was just me and her for so long, I didn't want her to feel replaced. Lily's expression softened, because she knew that kind of fear, the fear of stepping into someone else's memories, of loving a person whose heart had already been shaped by loss. I don't want to take your place in her life, she said quietly, and Ethan squeezed her hand. You're not taking anything, you're adding to it. Outside, a bus roared past and someone laughed loudly on the sidewalk. Life moving fast while their moment felt still and fragile. Lily looked down at their hands. What if she doesn't like me? Ethan didn't answer right away, because the truth was he had wondered the same thing in the early hours of many nights, staring at his ceiling, thinking about the 2 most important people in his life meeting for the first time. She will, he said finally, not because he was certain but because hope was stronger than fear. Lily studied his face, searching for doubt, finding only determination. Tonight changes everything, doesn't it? She asked, and he nodded, a small smile forming. Yeah. Tonight I stop living in 2 separate worlds. Lily took a slow breath, straightening in her chair as if bracing for a big wave. Okay then, she said, let's change everything. Ethan signaled for the check, his heart beating faster with every passing minute, not from panic but from the feeling that life was about to open a new door, one he had stood in front of for months without turning the handle. And as they stood to leave the cafe, stepping out into the cool evening air side by side, neither of them said it out loud, but they both felt it. By the end of the night, they would either be closer than ever, or standing at the start of a much harder road. The sky burned orange and pink as Ethan drove through the quiet streets of the suburb where he grew up, the car filled with a soft tension that hummed louder than the engine. Lily watched the houses glide by, small lawns, basketball hoops, porch lights flicking on one by one, trying to picture a younger version of the man beside her racing his bike down these sidewalks, scraping his knees, dreaming about a future he was now living. So this is where it all started, she said gently, and Ethan smiled without taking his eyes off the road. Yeah, paper routes, snow shoveling, my first heartbreak, all of it happened within 5 blocks. Lily tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her reflection faint in the window glass. Your mom never moved, she asked. No, he said, his voice softening. She says every room still sounds like Dad's laugh. The words hung between them, not heavy but deep. Lily nodded because she understood that kind of quiet ache. Losing someone didn't empty a house, it filled it with echoes. Does she still cook his favorite meals? Lily asked carefully. Ethan let out a small breath of a laugh. Every Sunday, even if it's just her at the table. Lily looked down at her hands in her lap, realizing she wasn't just meeting a mother tonight. She was stepping into a love story that never got a proper ending, and that thought made her sit straighter. I don't want her to think I'm trying to take his place, she said. Ethan shook his head right away. You won't, no one could. You're just the next chapter. Lily liked that, not a replacement, not an interruption, just a new page turning. Streetlights blinked on as they turned the corner, shadows stretching long across the road. Ethan slowed the car, his childhood home only a minute away now, and for the first time since they left the cafe his confidence slipped just a little, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. Lily noticed. You okay? She asked. He nodded too fast, then exhaled. I've imagined this moment 100 times, but now that it's here, I feel like I'm 16 again, bringing someone home for the first time. Lily smiled softly. That's kind of sweet. He glanced at her. I just don't want tonight to hurt her. Lily reached across the console and rested her hand over his, grounding him. Love doesn't hurt people by existing, she said. Secrets do. Distance does. But love just asks for space. Ethan swallowed, her words landing somewhere deep. The houses grew more familiar. The old oak tree at the corner, the cracked sidewalk he once tripped on, memories moving past the window like a quiet movie. She still sets an extra chair out on special days, he said suddenly, not looking at Lily. I used to think it was sad, now I think it's just her way of keeping the door open. Lily squeezed his hand gently. Then maybe tonight she'll open it a little wider. He gave her a grateful look, and for a second the fear in his chest loosened. They turned onto Maple Drive, the street where he learned to drive, where he stayed out too late, where his dad taught him how to throw a baseball in the fading light. That house with the blue mailbox, he said quietly. That's home. Lily's heart jumped. She smoothed her dress without realizing, suddenly aware of every breath she took. Ethan parked at the curb but didn't turn off the engine right away, both of them staring at the warm glow in the front window. Ready? He asked. Lily nodded even though her pulse raced. Ready, she said. And as he finally switched off the car, the world felt very still, like it was holding its breath with them, because in a few steps, on the other side of that familiar front door, 3 lives were about to gently collide, and none of them would be the same again. Carol wiped her hands on a dish towel for the 3rd time even though the kitchen was already clean, her heart beating a little faster with a strange mix of excitement and nerves she couldn't explain. And when she heard a car door shut outside, she moved to the window, peeking through the curtain like she used to when Ethan came home late as a teenager, only this time he wasn't sneaking in past curfew. He was walking up the path with purpose, shoulders straight, and someone beside him, a young woman with soft eyes and careful steps. Carol's breath caught for half a second before she opened the door, the cool evening air brushing her face as Ethan smiled in that hopeful way he had when he wanted her to like something important. Hi, Mom, he said gently. This is Lily. Lily stepped forward, holding a small bouquet of daisies, her smile warm but nervous. Mrs. Parker, it's so nice to meet you. Carol looked at the flowers, then at Lily's face, then back at her son, reading the quiet message in his eyes, and though surprise flickered across her expression, she stepped aside and said, Please, call me Carol, come in. The house wrapped around them with the smell of rosemary chicken and fresh bread, the same comforting scent Ethan grew up with. Lily noticed the framed photos lining the hallway, school pictures, family vacations, a wedding portrait where Carol stood beside a tall man with kind eyes, and she understood right away that love still lived strongly in these walls. They moved to the dining table, chairs scraping softly on the floor, the clink of plates filling the silence as they sat, Ethan talking a little too fast about traffic and work while Lily answered politely, Carol listening closely, her smile gentle but thoughtful, watching how Lily looked at Ethan when he spoke, how their hands brushed without thinking, how natural they seemed together. So, Carol said at last, folding her napkin neatly, how long have you two known each other? Ethan hesitated only a second. A while, he admitted. Lily glanced at him, then back at Carol, choosing honesty. 2 years, she said softly, the words landing heavier than she meant them to. Carol's eyebrows lifted slightly, not in anger but in quiet surprise. 2 years is a long time, she said, her voice calm but her eyes searching her son's face. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on the table. I wanted to tell you sooner. I just didn't know how. Carol nodded slowly, understanding more than he realized, because she had spent years protecting her own heart too, afraid that moving forward meant leaving something behind. Dinner continued with softer conversation, stories about Ethan as a kid, Lily laughing at tales of messy science projects and forgotten lunchboxes, the tension easing inch by inch. Carol noticing how Lily listened with real interest, not forcing smiles, not pretending, just being present. And that mattered. When the plates were cleared, Carol stood at the sink, rinsing dishes while the low murmur of Ethan and Lily's voices drifted from the table. She looked out the kitchen window into the dark backyard and felt something shift inside her, not loss, not fear, but the quiet realization that her son's life had grown bigger than the two of them, and maybe that was not something to hold back, just something to learn to share. She dried her hands and turned around to see them both watching her, hopeful, waiting. And in that moment she saw not a stranger beside her son, but a young woman standing carefully at the edge of their family story, hoping to be invited in. And Carol's heart, though tender with old memories, made just a little more room. The kitchen felt smaller now, not from space but from emotion, the air thick with everything unsaid as Carol stood by the counter holding a dish towel she had forgotten to put down. Ethan a few steps away with his heart pounding so loud he wondered if they could hear it, and Lily beside him gathering quiet courage, because love sometimes needed a voice even when fear said stay silent. She took one step forward, her hands gently clasped. "Carol," she began, her tone calm but full of feeling, "I know tonight might feel sudden, and maybe even hard, but I want you to know I didn't come here to change what you and Ethan have. I came because I love him, and I respect the life that shaped him." Carol looked at her closely, eyes tired but kind. Lily continued, "I lost my dad when I was 20. And for a long time I thought loving new people meant losing him more, but it didn't. It just made my heart stretch. It made space for new joy without erasing old love." Ethan swallowed, emotion rising in his throat as he watched the two most important women in his life standing face to face. Carol's fingers tightened around the towel, her voice soft when she spoke. "You sound like someone who understands more than I expected." Lily gave a small nod. "I understand missing someone at the dinner table. I understand keeping their memory alive in small ways. I would never ask you to let that go." Ethan stepped closer. "Mom, I didn't tell you about Lily because I was afraid you'd feel like I was moving on without you, like our little team was ending." Carol's expression broke just a little at that. "Oh, Ethan," she said, her voice shaking, "I was never afraid of losing my place in your life. I was afraid of being alone in mine." The truth settled between them, simple and honest. Lily reached for Ethan's hand, and he held hers tightly, strength passing between them. Then Ethan took a breath that felt like a leap and reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small velvet box that caught the warm kitchen light. Lily's eyes widened, tears already forming before he even spoke. Carol's hand flew to her chest. Ethan moved in front of Lily and dropped to one knee, not dramatic, not perfect, just real. "Lily," he said, voice unsteady but clear, "you walked into my life when I didn't know I was ready to open the door again. You were patient with my fears, gentle with my past, and brave with my future. I don't want to build the next chapter without you. Will you marry me?" Lily let out a soft laugh through tears, nodding before words came. "Yes, yes, of course," her voice breaking with joy. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, both of them laughing and crying at once. And when they looked up, Carol was crying too, not from sadness but from the release of a long-held breath. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around both of them, pulling them close. "I thought tonight I might feel like I was losing my son," she whispered, "but instead I feel like I'm gaining a daughter." Lily hugged her tightly, emotion pouring out in quiet tears, Ethan holding them both, the three of them standing in a small kitchen filled with years of memories and the soft glow of something new beginning. Outside the window the night settled peacefully over the neighborhood, unaware that inside one home a heart had opened wider, a family had grown, and love, instead of replacing anything, had simply found more room to stay.